So it's a great pleasure to be here. I have to say this is a very, very grey day, but anyway, it's lovely to be here. I'm going to talk about some reflections on gender equality and whether it's ever going to be sorted. I will explain the title, Dirt Poverty, later. I'll explain it. One of the people in my team is Estonian, and she just did not understand why I was talking about tea. So I tried to explain to her I'm not really talking about tea, but anyway. Okay, so just a bit about my background. I'm going to use a lot of examples from Imperial College, because that's where I work. The impact of Athena SWAN, so Louise mentioned Athena SWAN. One of my things I'm particularly interested in is the words we use. Unconscious bias and then being radical. So that's what I'm going to cover. In terms of my background, my PhD was in glacial geomorphology in northern Scotland. So it was weather like this for the whole of my PhD. So dark, wet, cold, peat bogs for 3 years. My postdoc was in Egypt, hot, dry desert, which, funny enough, the decision to do my postdoc in Egypt was did not take me long. I did another postdoc in education development. Just out of interest, my postdoc PI was female, so female in geology was unusual. And I've worked at East Anglia, Cambridge, and at Imperial. So in terms of Imperial, I've been at Imperial since 2008. I'm the founding head of the Postdoc and Fellows Development Centre. So at Imperial, we have approximately 2,500 researchers, which amount to 35% of the staff population. Only 16% of the staff population are academics. So there's quite an interesting ratio there. Thank you for bringing the book in. It's a rather marvellous book. All of you students, postdocs, postgrads, it's a very practical workbook. My three colleagues, when we were writing it, my husband proofread it, and I think it's quite a funny book, but my husband, when he proofread it for the 5th time, said, it's not funny. So, and there's cartoons in it, and he said the cartoons aren't funny either. So, anyway, moving on from that. In terms of work that I've been doing at Imperial, I was awarded the Dame Julia Higgins Medal. I think it's quite interesting that it is actually physically a medal. And a medal is not a particularly feminine thing. It doesn't have a string, so I don't put it around my neck. But I think it's quite interesting. Imperial is very into medals, so we get medals for excellence. Anyway, so I got a medal. So here I am. It was Royal Albert Hall. The college, it was a really nice ceremony actually, and they put my mum and husband in the royal box. And my mum sat on all the seats because she wanted to make sure she sat on the seat that the Queen sits at. She's like, Mum, I think we're a bit more serious. And when we were processing down, my mum and husband were waving at me. I was like, no, can't wave back. Why Dame Julia Higgins? Sorry, I've got back one. Dame Julia Higgins was the first female professor in the Faculty of Engineering. She's still alive, very much supporting women. She's also the first female at the college to have a portrait. And the reason I emphasise that is Imperial is quite a traditional university, and in our council room, which is a beautiful old building, all the portraits are of men, starting with Prince Albert. So she's not actually allowed to be hung in that room because she's not Vice-Chancellor, but she's hung in another room. But she's the first woman to have a portrait painted. I've been a long-term champion of women. It's one of my passions, particularly researchers, and I'll explain that. A programme that's been going for a long time is the Springboard Women Development Programme. And I've run, it's a national programme. I'm not sure whether you do it. You probably do it here, yes? A really good programme for any staff, so not particularly for academic. But it's a really great personal development programme. So why researchers? So why have I spent quite a lot of my career particularly focusing on researchers? And research, I mean end of PhD and postdoc. At Imperial, we have a very distinct definition of postdocs and researchers. So postdocs are on someone else's grounds, and then fellows have got their own funding. Imperial is a tough environment, and virtually no postdocs will get an academic job at Imperial. So that's the sort of context we're working with. I think for postdocs it is the perfect storm of challenges. So postdocs are moving along in their career, but they're also getting established families, short-term contracts, and it's tough. So there's been mention of the leaky pipeline. I have got a great quote from the maths department that said it's not leaking, it's just hemorrhaging everywhere. And I actually think outside Imperial, because Imperial, the centre that I've been head of is, we've been going for 10 years, we're sector leading, we're the best there is, but there's no other centre like us in the UK. So most of the universities, they're the forgotten body. So you've seen, so these are called scissor diagrams. I was explaining to someone at lunchtime what a scissor diagram is. So you can see this is, Louise has shown you, this is our faculty of medicine in 2017, and you can see where the break-off point is the researcher staff, so where they drop dramatically. So I could show you hundreds of these. It's okay, I won't this afternoon. But this is really common. But what I would say is this is a very classic scissor diagram, but this is our faculty of engineering. So there's no scissor diagrams there because they're low already. So the faculty of engineering is a different challenge in some ways to the medicine because the numbers are so low. Okay. Research around gender equality, there's loads of it. So as I was prepping for this talk, there's one just recently in Nature Ecology. What they're saying is fewer applications for grants, but actually the women that apply for grants are equally successful as the men. Women are underrepresented in publishing, both editing and papers being published. There's biases in recommendations and hiring, less recognition and visibility. So I'm hopefully not saying anything that you don't know. One thing I would do is, I'll give you a little bit of homework, is there is someone at Imperial called Jess Wade. Has anyone heard of her? Yeah? Hands up if you heard of her? Okay, she is the most phenomenal woman, I would say, in the college. So she's a postdoc. She's done a Wikipedia campaign. The last year she has written a Wikipedia entry every day. She's been cited as, in Nature, one of the top 10 women in the last year to look out for. And she has done amazing things. So she's got a great Twitter feed. So my homework for you is go and look her up. She's a young woman in physics, but is absolutely committed to changing gender equality. So I do agree that I think we need to keep going with data. However, I'm not sure we need to keep doing research around it. Okay, so gender equality exists. It exists. I see examples all day, every day, and it exists. And I think sometimes we're academics, we're in academic environments, and quite often I see something being suggested that, and then they say, I think we should do a bit of research around it. And I'm getting a little bit tired of that. When I worked at Cambridge, the surefire way of delaying anything, was to have a scoping project. So I learnt to hate that word, and they'd say, oh, I think we need to be looking at something. We'll do a scoping project. So that's on the back burner for 3 years before the scoping project, which costs a lot of money, is coming forward and confirming exactly what you knew from day one. Will more data change the current situation? I think it will in terms of awareness, but I think there's more practical things that we need to be doing. Why do we need more data? I think we need to have data monitor, because all the actions we need to monitor if it makes a difference. I do believe that collecting data and doing more research can get in the way. So it's that comfort blanket of we need to prove that this is happening when actually it's happening, it's live, and we need to be doing much more about it. So in terms of Imperial College, I want to just put the context of where I'm working, because then it links with the work we've been doing. So Imperial, it is hard science, okay? So it's engineering, medicine, natural sciences, and the business school. So we have 20 departments. Our president is female. The provost is male. The 4 deans are male. The assistant provost for equality, diversity, and inclusion is male. So think about, we're talking about the gender pay gap. On first looking at it, our gender pay gap at the most senior level looks great because, as in good, because Alice is, I think, the second highest paid person, not woman, in higher education, so as a Vice-Chancellor. So that makes it, and she's also been incredibly transparent about what her salary is, etc. So we did get some headlines that our senior gender pay gap was really good. It's not, okay, but they were. I was quite intrigued at that spinning of the, you know, we're not as bad as. University always say we're not as bad as them, and we're better than them. So I think it was a little bit of very interesting spinning. So just to give a flavour of the departments, this is engineering. So we have 10 engineering departments. So you need something in engineering, we do it. So we've got aeronautics, earth sciences, etc., etc. Dyson School of Design is sponsored by Dyson, James Dyson. He donated a lot of money to us and insisted that obviously he had his name on it. Just some examples from this. So this is all hard engineering. Aeronautics, for example, has about, last time I looked, something like 35 academics, 1 female. That is tough. That's tough for that female. Used to have 2. And previous head of department, not current one, I said to him, it's great, you've got two female academics, that's really great. He said, one of them's on maternity leave. I said, yeah, but there's still a female academic. And he said, she's on maternity leave. And at that point, it takes a lot to shut me up, but I was just like, oh, I'm not quite sure quite what to say back to him on this one, other than she's still an academic. So natural sciences, going back to faculty of engineering, all male heads. Male dean, 10 male heads of all these departments. Computing used to be female, but it's all male. So the deans and heads of department meetings are 11 men and the female secretariat. So when you give talks at those meetings, it's interesting walking in. Natural sciences is a bit better. Physics, female head. Second female head we've had. Life sciences, female head. Just a bit of caveat about physics. Physics is one of the biggest departments in the country, I think. Incredibly top-heavy of white male professors. What I'd strongly advise you not to do is, I once was looking at, thinking, where does that expression come from, top-heavy, you know, meaning top-heavy management? So I Googled it. Don't ever do that, because a lot of incredibly inappropriate websites flew up onto my screen. Anyway, so physics is very white male, really top-heavy with white male professors, and really top-heavy with white public school-educated boys. Physics also, we've got a female head, we had a previous female head, but the department is so big that it's actually the groups that have got the power, that they're the people that have got a lot of the power. And then medicine, again, we've got 2 heads of departments. So when I started in 2008, out of 20 departments, we had 1 female head, now we've got 4. So progress, it's change, it's change. Just moving on to Athena SWAN. So Athena SWAN was launched in 2005. It was there to provide support for women in STEM, and you can get an award. I'm guessing most universities are you doing it here? You're doing it here, yeah. And the assessment is you get bronze, silver, or gold. And it's action plans, what you're going to do to help gender inequality, and then there's the national panel. So I'm an assessor and I'm also on a chair. I think it's had a massive impact, particularly medicine, because Dame Sally Davis said that only departments that had a silver award would get funding. Now, I don't think she's actually said when the deadline for that is, but I have to say it did focus the mind. So a lot of our departments went to scuttleway to do silver. Imperial, we are last checked, I think we're the only college university to have a silver. We have 1 gold, 7 silvers and 9 bronzes. And previous provost, who was an absolutely lovely guy, he liked saying this is all departments are on the Athena SWAN journey. some of them were a little bit further on than others. So Dyson School of Design, they're not actually on the journey yet. And the reason for that is because, I love these reasons, it's like the cat ate my homework, it's because they moved into a new building. It's like, yeah, okay, but you moved into a new building, but what does that mean? You've still got the same stuff. Anyway, and I think we've got 3 departments that have applied, and we'll find out. So, and the knock-on for the Athena SWAN work is it's absolutely embedded in Imperial, it's on our signatures, it's on everything. And what it means is every department's got a committee, quality diversity committee, transformation committee, all different types of committees. It's got faculty committees, it's got college committees, it's got 2 college committees, we've got assistant provost for quality and diversity, so it's all there, it's all through and through, embedded, etc. And some examples of good practice is know your pool. So this is where any recruitment is that if it looks like the shortlist is not representative of the people who are out there, then it goes back. So it's know your pool. Know who is there that could be applying for these jobs. We have Women of Imperial, so around International Women's Day, so we have quite a big thing around that. We have portrait photographs of women. Unconscious bias training, all recruitment panels are supposed to do it. I'm going to talk about unconscious bias training a bit later. Active bystander is a new one, which is calling out bad practice. The female portraits, so there is a guy in the council room, which is all these male portraits, because we've got a female president, but there won't be a portrait of her until she leaves. But they have been shunting the pictures around, so there is a gap for Alice. And we have core hours, which are 10 to 4, etc., childcare support. This is, we've got lots and lots of examples of good practice. Think about my centre, so Postdoc and Fellows Development Centre, this is what we do as well. So I do have a philosophy that what's good for women is good for everybody, but I also will do women-only things. So we do mock interviews, so any postdoc going for any interview gets a mock interview. We give them a really tough time. We run it as a real interview, and we have 50% success rates. So that's nothing to do with gender, we train the panel to be very supportive of, particularly of women, but supportive of postdocs who maybe have not had an interview for a while. One-to-ones, we do a lot of one-to-one work. Springboard, I mentioned previously. Women-only briefings. I do get into trouble about doing women-only briefings. But I just ignore that because I think there's space for women-only briefings, and I do a lot of recruitment for fellowships. I'm on a lot of fellowship panels. I do a lot of reviewing of fellowship panels. I'll talk about men and women writing differently, but they do. And the women-only briefings, which I'm allowed to do, it's not breaking the law, is actually about talking through the way people are writing applications. Thinking about having a baby, so that was suggested, and I thought nobody would turn up because it's postdocs and they wouldn't want their PIs to see that they're thinking about having a baby. So I thought people would turn up with hoodies, Anyway, so the first time I did it was engineering. There was standing room only. It was a windowless, airless, hot room in the middle of summer. So there was people standing. There was 4 pregnant ladies, which I was thinking a bit late for this course. You've been doing the thinking, you've been doing something else as well, but there you go. And what that course briefing is about is, particularly for postdocs, is talking about returner schemes, there's some maternity rights, and then we have a panel of postdocs and early career academics talking about what it's like having a baby. Particular stresses in London is the sheer cost of childcare. But that's a really nice event. I did once get challenged by someone very, very bright, able woman, a fellow, really bright, and she said, if you have 1 year off for a baby, do you get 2 for twins? And for a split second I thought, oh, maybe you do. And then the woman from HR was like, no. And we do pop-ups as well. So there's a whole array of stuff that we do to support women. So you've been sitting for about an hour and a half now, so I did say it was going to be interactive. Going to just give you a couple of moments to talk next to the person, for you to talk about some examples of good practice in Bangor, in this department. I may not call it out, but just some examples you know of. If you can't think of any, then that in itself is significant. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. Okay, great. So one of the things about examples of good practice is because it's a problem for all universities, I'm a great believer in just sharing practice. No point reinventing the wheel. And that's one of the good things about Athena SWAN is that there's been a lot of sharing of good practice. Okay, so I would say I think there have been advances. I do think there have been advances. However, what my concern is now, so, you know, we can call things out, there's the law, there's Athena SWAN, there's active bystander, etc. So there's a lot of things we can do, and we can do it with confidence. But I wonder now whether gender inequality has become buried and much, much more subtle. So the bigger things we can call out, but then the subtle things. So, for example, I was invited to be an observer on a Faculty of Medicine fellowship panel, so about 5 years ago. And they invited me to be an observer because I run the scheme, and I said that was absolutely fine. Went into the room, all male, and it was a room that was far too small, far too hot, and the table was far too big. And the reason I'm telling you all this is because because there wasn't enough gap between the edge of the table and the wall, and the chair, so I had to sit at the table. And one of the male panellists first of all said, "Oh, you're the observer, aren't you?" And said, "Yes." Said, "You do know you're not allowed to say anything, don't you?" And I said, "Yes, I do know that." Try stopping me talking, but that's fine. And then he said, "And you do know that normally you wouldn't be allowed to sit at the table. That you'd actually be sitting by the wall, but the only reason you're allowed to sit at the table today is because there isn't enough space." So I said, okay, and I thought, right, what do I do at this point? Do I say you can all, well, I'm not sure what I really was thinking, you can get lost and I'm off? Or do I actually stay there and think, okay, I'll just note that? So I did stay there, and actually by the middle of the afternoon, the chair, I was so wanting to throttle one of the candidates, the chair did actually let me ask a question. But what I did say at the end, and a lot of the stuff was sort of okay, but the one thing I did say is, okay, I will point this out to you, is that every female candidate who's walked in, and when you've talked about her, you've called them a girl. And every male candidate, talked about them, when they walked in, you called them men. So I said, so one thing I want you to change is that. And the guy next to me who said, I'm not allowed to talk, he said, oh, we don't take any notice of that. Anyway, I'm now on that panel in my own right. I get to sit at the table. I get to ask questions. And funny enough, he's not on my panel anymore. Okay, so meritocracy. Meritocracy is a great excuse for, sorry guys, but sometimes appointing men. So they say, yeah, we can do all this stuff. We're 50-50 candidates, 50-50 panel, but we're a meritocracy. This Imperial, we're a meritocracy. We'll only go for the best. Okay, but if you're not getting the right pool of people, then you're perpetuating that myth. Imperial's always about excellence. We're excellence at this, that and the other. In the research exercise about 10 years ago, we used to have a history of science department, something like that. And when the results came out, we were the best at history of science. And it's like there's one person that we came top of the league table. So like, no, let's just forget that one. And women don't just apply. So Louise was saying that. We can't find the women. Where are they? They're just not applying. So I think a lot of it is buried now, and that concerns me. So I'm going to give an example of something that happened at Imperial in 2015. So 2015 Varsity tournament. So this was a rugby tournament. We got to the final, Twickenham, big deal, and it was women. It was a women's final. And it was a pretty good deal. And what I would say is we won. We won. Just a little proud Imperial. But there was a lot of incredibly unacceptable behaviour. For example, so this is public domain, I'm not saying anything I shouldn't be saying. I think there was a warm-up match by the men and they trashed the changing room. There was a lot of stuff. There was quite a lot of publicity about it. So it said it was sexist, unacceptable behaviour, and basically the women's team had been treated differently to what happened in previous years for the men's team. And what came out was most of it was about the culture of the college. I didn't have the nerve to, I did want to whether to start this talk and say, tell me what you think Imperial's reputation is, but I don't have the nerve to do that because I'm not sure it'll come out as entirely positive. The three most common words, so what happened is, this is where the college I think is very good, is anything untoward like this, it moves very, very quickly. So, swift investigation, there was a report, and then there was a year-long research project about the culture. So the three most common words used was competitive, ambitious and driven. So that's all people were interviewed. And then other words were that it was, the culture is cutthroat, intimidating, blaming and arrogant. So quite, I have to say, really uncomfortable reading. And then, if it makes any difference here, is a word cloud. So you know about word clouds, it's a cloud of the most commonly used words. Uncomfortable reading, to be honest. And so the report, and my own personal view is, this is 2016, and slightly disappointed in what the recommendations were. My view is a lot of motherhood and apple pie, but also indicative of the fact that changing culture is really, really difficult. And I've given you a picture of Imperial, it's very, very male. And so the recommendations, they didn't want to set targets, because they said what targets would do was that it would actually increase pressure and stress on people. And I agree with that, because actually, it depends what the targets are, but if they're saying we've got to have on a recruitment panel 50-50 male-female, but then none of the women are ever appointed, that's more damaging than not. They did say college should work to transform the processes which conserve power within the institution in particular spaces, particular types of people and values. So we do have some examples in our departments where they are monoculture, so the head of the group is from a particular country, and oh, funny, all the people in this group are from the same country. And I'll talk about that a little bit later about unconscious bias and why that might be. But what I would say is changing culture is really difficult. It's not, this isn't rocket science, it is just really, really difficult. So one of the things I'm particularly interested in is the words we use, and I think that, to me, that's one thing that we can change, and we need to be looking at awareness raising of that. So, again, no rocket science, men and women write differently, you just do. There are male words and there are female words. I've got a really great list here, some of them I don't agree with, but anyway, a list of male and female words. And what we do need to do, we need to understand the differences and the significance this difference makes. So if, as a woman, you're writing and putting a lot of qualitative words in, then that will come across as a lot less confident than sometimes the men write, which is much more factual. So, a bit more introduction, I've got a quiz for you. So, I'm going to write, so what I want you to do is, I'm okay for time, I've got a whole lot of statements. So what I've gathered over the years is examples in people's CVs, or in emails, things that I've seen. So, I want you to guess the gender of the person who has written this. Okay, so, in 5 years' time, I aim to run my own lab. If you think that was a female, put your hand up. Okay, if you think that was a male, put your hand up. Yep, male. So, men will write, I aim to be. Women will write, this is a slight exaggeration, so I'm doing a little bit of a caricature. Women will write, if I'm really, really lucky, if the stars are all right, and if I'm really helped, I'm like, really lucky, I might become a lab leader, okay? That is an exaggeration. Not all of it is. Second one, although I have no experience in this field, I do have some experience of multidisciplinary work. Female, hands shows. Male, female. So, women often write that they tell me what they don't have, can't do, not very good at, before they tell me what they're good at. Okay? Third one, I really hope you find my application of interest. Male, show of hands. Oh, gosh, you're good at this. Female. Yeah, okay. So, 2 words there. Hope. I really hope. Really hope. Not just hope. I really, really hope. And my application of interest. Not that actually I look forward to talking to this further interview, that actually I really hope I might be just a little bit interesting to you. I'm an expert in, show of hands for female, Male? Okay. Prizes and awards? Female? Male? Yeah. Okay, I'll carry on. Gosh, you are really good at this. I've done 2 hours on this quiz with people. Okay, I'm also fortunate enough to work with a well-established group of leading research leaders. Male? Female? Female. Reflect the glory from the research leaders. So fortunate is a very female word, very, very female word. And you're fortunate that there's these leading researchers and you just happen to be in that group. Feedback from this course was overwhelmingly positive. Male? Female? Female. Because it was like overwhelming. I didn't think it was that good. I was overwhelmed by how brilliant it was. Oh, yes, thank you. That's it. Oh, overwhelmed. I think you should come up on stage. You just do it. Right, I co-led the project with X. Male? Female? Male. Female wouldn't say that they'd be assistant to, might not even name it. I've had 2 career breaks, each lasting 6 months, but I am a committed and dedicated academic. Male? Nice try. Female? Yeah, okay, so that one. So one of my, okay, women have children, men have families, you all have families. I have never yet seen a CV, and I've probably seen thousands of CVs. I've never seen a male CV that mentions any sort of parenting or I have 2 children or anything like that. Now, whether that will change, because we've now got parental leave, but it's been a couple of years, so I've still not seen anyone's CV saying I took 6 months of parent leave. But women, they say, I've had 2 career breaks. I had one CV, which I kept for the sheer joy of it, was that she said she's had 3 career breaks, 3 maternity career breaks. She had 3 children. She was female, and there was something else. The names of the children, which academic CV, that was a little bit beyond even me. And so I said, okay. And she said her husband said it was really important that she put those things on the front page of her CV. He was an academic in the same department. And I said, oh, that's interesting. Is that on his? And she said, oh, no, not on his. He said, no, not on his. And I was, right, let's rip that bit off. How the fact that you don't need to tell me you're female because you're telling me you've had 3 maternity breaks, and you don't need to tell me you've got 3 children, although I wish you could have had twins. But anyway, so I don't have any weaknesses. Male? Female? Yeah, male. That was in an interview I did, and I don't do this question anymore because I just, what's your biggest strength? And the men go, let me tell you. 7 minutes later, they are still going, and the women are like, oh, I can't answer this question. I hate this. Oh, I can't. Which at this point I want to throttle them. And then biggest weakness says, well, you are women in the room. You are brilliant at that. I'm not very good at this. And 10 minutes later, like, shut up. But the men, your biggest weakness. I don't have any. Anyway, just one more final 3. I understand you offer one-to-one coaching. How do I book? I'm free this afternoon. Male or female? Male? Yeah, straight to the point. This fellowship will put me in an excellent position to get a fellowship permanent academic job. Male? Female? Male. Just really straight. Final one. Dear Liz, how are you? I hope you're well. I expect you are really busy, but wondered whether it would be possible to meet with you to get some advice. I won't need long. Any time's okay for me. I will be really grateful. I have to say, this went on a lot longer. And I wanted to say, it's my job. It's fine. And someone was really bad. She was absolutely, really, really lovely woman. I did some coaching with her, and I said, look, I know you really like me, you don't need to do all that sort of stuff. And she sent me one email, and it said, come see you, Olive. And I said, that's fine. She said, I can't do it. But the best thing was, so she was from Ireland, and she'd been at Imperial for 7 years, and she was from Cork, and she had found a job at Cork, an engineering job, really good job. And she was going to go for it. And so we did a mock interview for her. And one of the questions was, how do you feel about going back to Cork? And she answered, said, oh, I really want to go back. It's really important to me. I said, no. This is like going home to mummy, okay? It's not about you going back to Cork or going home, going back to is actually, this is a strategic decision made, this furthers your career, it's all these possibilities, etc. Anyway, so she went for the interview, got the job, and then went to see the provost because she had such a lot of support. And the provost from Ireland said, how do you feel about going back to Cork? Boom! And he saw me the next day and he said, oh, I met Olive. She was very clear she was not going back to Cork. Okay. So the words we use has a big impact, and I do a lot of coaching with women to say, take out these weak words. And they do weaken. They do weaken applications, and unless you're really tuned to that, so one of my skills is I can spot the gender of a CV within about 5 seconds. So normally what happens then, people send me CVs anonymised and say, you know, it's so easy because men use much more assertive words than women do, generally speaking, always some exceptions. So that's about words that we use, and then moving on to references. So I've got 2 examples. I've been selective. I've not made them up. So one is male to male. So this was for one of our awards for a medal. For the, what was it, Excellence in Research Award medal. So this was one reference, male to male. So he's emerging as one of the best and the brightest in generation, a real star performer, credit to Imperial. Okay. Then, male to female, not the same male, I say, but male to female. So, I think this is shocking, actually. This was last year. But because it's one of the things I'm particularly interested in, I see it all the time. I'm very, very aware of it. But I think lots of people are not aware of it. And in this particular case, describing this extraordinarily talented woman in these words was in danger of her being dismissed as just not as good as the man. Okay. So combined with his application, which was all I am extraordinary, outstanding, etc., and hers, with those references, you've then got the chance of someone being able to... So I'm very into calling things out, and I said, right, we need to look at this. But that's, that is a big impact, and it's... It's all right. So, that's sort of shocking. I could give you loads more examples, but I have pulled these are real quotes out, so I haven't made them up, but I have got some worse ones, but I think that's shocking enough. So in terms of other context about words, so there was something called the LIBRA project. It's an EU-funded project, and they developed a tailored gender equality plan to revise recruitment policies, and they list male and female coded words. Okay, so another pause for you. Give me what you think is a male coded word. Any example?
From.
Yeah. Another one?
Brave.
Yeah.
Leader.
Yeah.
Assertive.
Yeah.
Ambitious.
Yeah.
Driven.
Yeah. Okay, female.
Kind.
Kind.
Nurturing.
Nurturing.
Interested in.
Interested in.
Diligent.
Diligent.
Bright.
Bright. No, bright was a male one. Okay, so just to give you some examples. Top line, male or female? All of them. Yeah. And there's a huge, and there's a massive list of them. So I have to say, flatterable I find particularly offensive. Yeah, I know. Okay. So other words. So there was warm. Warm was female. Sensitive. Quiet. Quiet was one. Kind, etc. So it's actually worth looking at these words. So this is in the this report. I have to say some of them I did find a bit offensive, but actually the research is showing these words are used. So just things about my recommendations is awareness raising that men and women write differently, and this is an impact. So it's not rocket science, but I think actually we forget about it. Be careful of references. So I've got some golden rules about references. So if you ask someone to write a reference for you, and they say you draft it first, get someone else. I think, you know, if they're your supervisor or your PI or whatever, or your boss, sorry, but that's part of the job, so I think they should write it. 2 is actually, it is virtually impossible to write your own reference. It's really hard because culturally we will dumb it down, so that's really, really hard. Unless, apologies if there are any Americans in the room, Americans write great references because they're so over the top. It's like this person is going to be the next Einstein, has just graduated, but he'll be the next Einstein. So be really careful with references and training. So it's not my crusade to get, you know, women writing CVs that mimic men. So not really my crusade to do this, but partly a crusade is to write much more gender-neutral references. Gender-neutral CVs. So one of the courses I do on CVs is what I say to help people was I say, get some space, so some nice, comfortable space, and have a drink of something nice that makes you feel nice. So it could be a glass of wine, beer, or hot chocolate, anything like that. Don't have a second glass of wine because you can't type. And write the most big-headed CV you can think of. Imagine someone who's really big-headed and just write it. Don't overthink it, just write it. And then leave it for a couple of days and come back to it. It's probably come across quite assertive, assured, etc. So I did this in a couple of sessions, and then I got an email saying, we understand you are telling people they can only write CV if they drink a glass of wine. Thank you. Okay, unconscious bias. Huge amounts of work being done on unconscious bias. I'm going to do a really quick whiz through. So, unconscious bias, the one thing you need to know is you have all got it. I've got it. You've all got it. So when I read articles that say, how can we get rid of unconscious bias? We can't, okay? Because it's so fast, it's unconscious. So I found the unconscious bias training and awareness raising incredibly liberating, because it means that when someone walks into the room, I am going to have an unconscious reaction to that person. And that knowing then what my triggers are about my reaction to that person, that means that I've got that awareness of where I may or may not be prejudiced against that person. And we've all got it, so just ditch any article that says how do we get rid of it, because we've got it. And the factors that influence it are our physical, our age, our gender, our race, our upbringing, shared interests, similar lifestyle, similar background. So it's all things that are very, very similar. So in groups, we have a natural tendency for people like us. So I would have a natural tendency, my unconscious attraction is likely to be extrovert, female, white, preferably from Yorkshire. Okay? But that might be pushing it a bit. Because that's what I feel comfortable with, because I've got all these connections with that person within seconds. My own groups are people that I am not that are not close to me in my upbringing, and that I wouldn't treat people dismissively or disdainfully, but they're unfamiliar to me, they're not close to me. And so having that awareness of the in-groups and out-groups is that you see in-group recruitment all the time, where you've got men recruiting men, like monoculture groups. And I have to say, I have to own up to this. I've got my team, despite my bestest efforts to get some men, I have had some men, but I've got a team of all women, and they're all extrovert. So we're really noisy. The office is really noisy. But race-wise, we're very mixed. So it's just something for you to be aware of, that we've all got it, so we've all got unconscious bias, but just to sort of bring it up in terms of how that impacts on you. So some of it isn't unconscious. I was recruiting last year, and there was a young lad from Cambridge, terribly posh, very big-headed, really arrogant, and shouted, oh my goodness, there was no unconscious bias in my recruitment. My hackles went, boom. And so he spent, actually it was straight off, he's a really nice guy, he did get the job, and we've got on fine. But on this panel, I was the only female, and they said, like, what question did I have? And I said to him, I'm a little bit embarrassed. I said to him, you spent the last half hour saying how absolutely brilliant you are. This fellowship of people is a junior fellowship, and you've now got to spend 5 minutes convincing me that you are not as good as you have just said you are. And the rest of the panel were like, Liz, you can't do that. I said, yeah, I can. And well, he did get fellowship, and I saw him, and he said it was the worst question he's ever been asked. I said, yeah, and you didn't answer it either. So anyway, okay, so unconscious bias, I think we have training all the time with it. I found it really liberating. Okay, so coming back to some final things. Explanation of don't pour the tea. I said I'd get there in the end. So I've got some golden rules. Before I show you the slide, it just makes me sound like I'm really, really stroppy, and I'm not. It's just that this is how I have operated successfully in a very male culture. Okay. So I never, ever offer to pour the tea. Ever. Okay. And I get very exasperated, particularly with women, when they say, shall I play mummy? No man has ever said, shall I play daddy? That'd have a different connotation. But it's, you know, I don't ever pour the tea. If someone wants to pour tea for me, that's fine, thank you very much. But I never pour tea. I never say sorry, unless actually there's something I've made a mistake. You know, so if I made a mistake, I will absolutely apologise, we'll say sorry. But we say sorry all the time. Sorry, this is late. Oh, sorry, can I just sit there? Oh, sorry, do you mind if I do this? And I think that, as women, that is not coming across as assertive. I never sit next to the chair at a committee meeting. I'm on a lot of committees. And the reason for that is if I sit next to the chair at a committee meeting, I'm the only woman, and the people don't know me, they'll assume I'm the secretary. So I don't ever sit next to the chair. But what I do is I don't sit diagonally opposite, because I'm a bit confrontational. I always sit, if I can, I sit on the edges, on the corners, because you see everyone and you can see the chair. And I never offer to take the notes. I've been asked, unless it's my job, of course. I'm not that difficult. You're the secretary of this committee, you're going to take notes. No, I'm not taking notes. But I've been on occasions where they said, oh, you know, Liz, would you take the notes? No, I won't take the notes. I'm really strategic about where I sit. So for the fellowship interviews, mostly they're often all male, I don't sit next to the door, and I don't sit next to the candidate. And the reason for that, if I'm next to the door, the chair will say, can you go and get the candidate? And then you're just not saying just the secretary, but you're doing it, you're not asking any of the men. And the reason why I don't sit next to the candidate is because I actually got a little tired of the candidates asking me to give them a glass of water. So, and one chair, actually, I thought the chair was going to pour the glass of water over his head, which I said, I quite like that. But so I'm really clear about things like that. I'm not that stroppy, really, but this is I have to do this. Or I feel I have to do this. Much more positive. I do build incredibly strong relationships. So I've got strong relationships with all the heads of department. I can see them, they give me time, I've got really strong relationships. I thank everyone for everything. So, Catherine, look out for the email tomorrow. I'll say thank you very much for inviting me. When I see people and have their time, quick email, say thank you very much. I tirelessly support women, sort of passionately, but absolutely passionately. I'm not a token woman, so occasionally when I've been asked to go onto panels, I say I'm there in my own right, and I ask questions in my own right. I'm not interested in being a token woman. So, is it ever going to be sorted, gender inequality? I think we have made some progress. So, our numbers of female professors, when I got to Imperial in 2008, I think it was 12% of professors were female, and now it's 19%, so that's progress. However, you have to be careful with stats, because it turns out that quite a lot of male professors are retired, and there's been some restructuring. So it's not quite as good as it sounds, but that has been progress. There's an awful lot of work. So the Athena SWAN work is enormous amounts of work. And every department is doing it. There's also always the discussion, should it be and more women in the chair than the men? And if they're in the minority, is it more work pressure on them? How senior the people who are on Athena SWAN panels? One of my bugbears is when people make decisions for you. So they'll say, oh, we won't ask her because she's too busy. just ask her, she'll decide. She'll make a decision whether she's too busy or not. I think some progress has been slow. So actually it's funny using the same example of the BBC, is that it was really good. So gender pay gap, I wouldn't have guessed in 10 years ago that that would almost be acceptable. But, you know, with the BBC, so frustrating is that, you know, why was it that they said the men had to take a pay cut and not the women a pay rise? And of course, some of the key people in the BBC, they've left because they weren't willing to take a pay cut. And I don't think they should have done, but it's just that is really frustrating. So my recommendations, adverts should be checked for gender bias. So there's software to do this. I've done this. So when you've got a job advert that says ambitious, thrusting, driven department going to solve the world's problems, that's not necessarily attractive to women. There's a piece of research showing that that women will be more likely to apply for something if they think that they could fit there and they could belong there. So interestingly, putting we are a family-friendly department makes no difference at all. And encouraging, we particularly encourage applications from women, makes no difference if the rest of the advert is all very male. No single gender panels, that's a no-brainer. Sorry, just absolute. No all-female panels either. So should be no single gender panels. No single gender shortlist unless real effort being put in. So it might be in particle physics that actually there isn't anyone that they're looking for at that stage. But I always think is with academic jobs, it's a commitment for life, and they should go back round. You need to go back round and genuinely say we have searched and we've proved that we've searched. Encourage women to apply, so that's a big thing, but give them support. So I do a lot of, my team and I do a lot of support of looking at draft applications. I take out all the girl words, I'm deliberately using that word, girl words, on applications, and so we provide a lot of support. Everyone should do unconscious bias training. Some subtle things like publicity. So a lot of our Athena SWAN, there'll be a picture of the department. And a picture of the department will be, there was one recently, I was just like, oh, was a man on a whiteboard, all these equations. He was in full focus, and then there's a woman, shorter than him, okay, that was like looking at him, but slightly out of focus. I was like, this is not representative of Imperial. Imperial is an incredibly international university anyway, but we can do better than that. So look at pictures, and we had another one where they had a team away day, and all the people standing around the table distributing tea were women. She's like, come on, just call that out. We don't need that. What can women do? Because actually, it does need to be 6.5 dozen either. Is that take all the support which is offered. Okay, there is a lot of support out there. Mentoring, coaching. Someone says you must look at your CV. Just take it. Recover from failure. So one of the big differences I see is men and women recover from failure really differently. So men, quite often they're like, they're lost. Next one. Women, it's like, I'm never going to do this again, this is the worst thing I've ever done, etc. So there was a nice thing the other day where it said a woman, there was a picture of a really nice plant in a researcher's office, and she said, this is my failure to get a grant plant. Isn't it beautiful? And I thought, I really like that. That's a really, just get over it. And then I thought, what if her office turns into a greenhouse? You know, that because, you know, failure rates are high. Our fellowship panel, success rate is 9%. You know, just get used to failure. So the other thing, I haven't got time to my soapbox about learn to say no, because I don't think it's about saying no. I think it's about saying yes to the right opportunities. So it's a big thing, you know, I'm not very good at saying no, but actually, sometimes training people to say no means there are fantastic opportunities whizzing behind their heads because they're like, I'm going to say no, I'm going to say no. So I think it's about learning to say yes, but only for the right opportunities, okay? Do you want to be a secretary to this panel? No. Do you want to teach 500 undergraduates on a Friday afternoon in winter? No. Do you want to be a member of this committee? Yes. Ditch the imposter syndrome, just get rid of it, ditch it. Ditch qualitative words. I'm quite good at this. And my hope for you is never use ever the word hope, lucky, competent, I hate the word competent, or I can't. Competent is not a positive word, and that's one of the key words I can pick up on a female CV. I am competent at pipetting. You've been doing it for 10 years. I think you should be better than competent. Okay, so final thing, and just for a minute, is talk to your neighbour. What one thing are you going to do, it's Tuesday, isn't it, tomorrow, to either think about gender inequality or do something, might be looking at CV or looking at some unconscious bias training, looking at Jess Wade. What one thing are you going to do within the next day about gender inequality? And just talk to your neighbour, and then... If I can just pause you there. So I do want to give people a chance to ask questions. Okay, so that's the end of my talk. Thank you very much.